When a project completely tanks, we immediately put it under a microscope, like a deadline gets blown, or a critical piece of software crashes, or a client just walks away and suddenly everyone is locked in a conference room.
Oh, yeah. You order the sad office lunch, you start drawing complex dependency diagrams on a whiteboard.
Right, exactly.
Right.
We agonize over every single misstep to find the root cause. But when things go perfectly, when we knock a massive deliverable completely out of the park, we never question our successes.
Not at all.
We hand out the high fives, we close the book, and we immediately move on to the next initiative. And honestly, that unquestioned success is exactly how we plant the seeds for our most catastrophic disasters.
It really is.
Because in business and operations, you're constantly fighting this battle between managerial illusion, which are those comfortable surface-level fixes we love to rely on, and operational honesty, which is the granular, deeply uncomfortable work of understanding how things actually function beneath the surface.
The psychological asymmetry between winning and losing is just fascinating because it is completely backward. I mean, think about it. When a project fails, the loss gets aggressively picked apart.
Yeah, heads roll.
Right. The organization demands an explanation, so the failure point eventually becomes obvious. You trace the error back to the exact line of code or the exact missed email. But a win does the exact opposite.
How so?
A win closes the loop. It looks pristine. Because the outcome is positive, nobody ever schedules a postmortem to ask why things went right. The comfortable assumption is simply that our inherent brilliance caused the success. We just assume the system is working perfectly purely because the output happened to be correct this one time.
I have to push back on that premise, though. Isn't a win just a win?
What do you mean?
Like if the client is thrilled and the revenue is secured in the bank, overanalyzing a victory feels like an unnecessary waste of time and resources. Why look a gift horse in the mouth?
I get that instinct, but
Because it feels exactly like guessing C on a really complex calculus problem, getting the answer right, and instantly being asked by the teacher to design a real-world suspension bridge based on that guess. You got the points, you passed the test, so you move on to the next challenge.
okay, but think about that exact analogy in practice to see why that mindset is such a dangerous trap. Imagine a really specific operational scenario, right? A junior data analyst is tasked with delivering this massive, high-stakes client reporting dashboard.
Okay.
Against all odds, she delivers it with 0 errors. It is the very first clean delivery her entire team has achieved all quarter.
Wow, good for her.
Right. She is heavily praised by the department head in a company-wide town hall. And based purely on that unquestioned win, she is instantly promoted to lead a new data migration project 3 times the size of her last one.
Oh, I see where this is going.
6 weeks later, she fails spectacularly. The entire data architecture collapses during a live demonstration in front of the client, costing the firm the contract.
Which makes sense because the operational reality of why she failed is terrifyingly simple. She never actually possessed the skills she thought she did.
Exactly.
And management never verified those skills. Her first delivery was clean solely because a senior engineer had quietly logged into the system and reworked her deeply flawed validation logic the weekend before her first delivery.
Yep.
She never asked what he changed in the back end, and he never bothered to explain it to her because he was just trying to save the deadline.
He was just putting out a fire.
Right, so
Yeah.
she was handed full credit for a technical process she fundamentally did not understand. That means her subsequent promotion and, the massive amount of risk the company handed her was based entirely on a managerial illusion.
This is exactly why you must treat every single win exactly like a loss. You have to document the formula, not the outcome.
The formula.
Right. When you review a success on your team, the operational finding is never, we delivered the dashboard with 0 errors. That tells you nothing about repeatable mechanics.
So what's the actual finding?
The true honest finding is we delivered with 0 errors specifically because every single metric got cross-checked against the core business logic by a senior engineer before the front-end dashboard was ever built.
Yeah.
If you cannot explicitly explain the granular mechanics of your win, you are just promoting yourself into a larger blast radius. You are taking on substantially larger stakes while remaining completely blind to the actual variables that control your success.
But it's not just one lucky analyst fooling themselves, right? Because if an individual can hide behind an unexplained win, imagine the kind of camouflage an entire department can build during a project cycle.
So it scales up entirely.
Yeah, entire teams will constantly create organizational illusions to avoid the operational honesty required to fix a fundamentally broken process.
We see this play out constantly in agile development cycles. Consider a scenario where a software engineering team's sprints just spill over 4 times in a row. For 4 consecutive development cycles, they completely miss their targets.
Which happens a lot.
All the time. Features are delayed, the backlog grows, and every single retrospective yields the exact same generic platitude. The team sits in a circle, looks at the burn-down chart, and collectively concludes, we are overcommitting to the business. Let's just commit to fewer features next sprint.
But wait, cutting scope sounds incredibly pragmatic to anyone managing a budget or a timeline. How is reducing the workload a bad thing?
It sounds pragmatic on paper.
Because if a system is clearly overloaded and people are burning out, pulling back the throttle and reducing the total volume of work seems like the most logical, mathematically sound response to missed deadlines. You have less time, so you do less work.
But cutting scope does not fix a broken handoff. It merely reduces the number of times that handoff breaks. It completely ignores the underlying disease in order to treat a surface-level symptom. Scope cutting is the ultimate managerial illusion because it requires zero operational investigation. It is just adjusting numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right, you're not actually looking at the work.
Exactly. But in sprint 5 of this scenario, someone finally refuses the generic fix. Instead of staying in the planning room moving digital sticky notes around, this person physically leaves their desk, sits with the developers, and follows an entire user story from the very beginning of the cycle to the very end.
And the operational reality they discover completely shatters the illusion of overcommitment.
Yep.
They find out that the testing phase is constantly stalling on technical dependencies between teams that nobody had ever bothered to write down.
Wow.
Like the front-end developers are waiting on an API endpoint from the database team, but the ticket just sits in a blocked status because neither team knows who actually owns the API integration.
The invisible roadblock.
Right. The delay was never about the volume of the work. It was always about that invisible roadblock. Once that specific technical dependency is clearly documented and a communication channel is established, Sprint 6 closes perfectly on time without the team ever needing to touch the scope or reduce their workload.
You cannot fix a recurring process problem from a planning room. You must go sit with the people executing the process and watch it break in real time.
You have to be on the floor.
The comfortable illusion is assuming that adjusting a timeline will fix a physical bottleneck. The operational honesty requires you to leave your desk, stand next to the person doing the actual work, and stay there observing until the specific point of failure reveals itself.
Well, and this exact same dynamic of avoiding broken processes translates directly to how leaders avoid dealing with broken performance, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Opting for a quiet, comfortable fix over operational honesty absolutely plagues how leaders manage underperforming people.
Let's examine a really common, very uncomfortable workplace scenario that happens in almost every corporate environment.
Okay.
A consultant on your team misses 2 critical client deadlines. They start turning in work with errors, and they quietly become the person nobody wants assigned to their project.
We've all seen that person.
Right. And the standard managerial move across the board is to quietly pull their work. The manager intercepts the deliverables, reassigns their complex tasks to more reliable team members, and says absolutely nothing directly to the underperforming consultant.
The psychology behind this quiet reassignment is so fascinating because it is completely driven by self-deception.
It really is.
To the manager doing the sidelining, this feels like mercy. They tell themselves they are protecting the broader team from having to pick up the slack, and they're sparing the employee from a harsh, demoralizing critique.
Which is a lie.
Yeah, in reality, it is purely managerial avoidance. The manager is actively sparing themselves the deeply uncomfortable conversation, not protecting the employee at all.
And leaders will constantly justify this avoidance by claiming their primary duty is to the client deliverable. They'll say, you know, if the project is at risk of failing, sidelining the weak link is the only responsible choice to protect the timeline.
Right. I mean, removing the bottleneck seems like the only pragmatic option when you're facing a strict Friday deadline.
But you hired this person. That means they are owed one real transparent conversation before you make the call to sideline them, not instead of it. You must sit down in a room, look them in the eye, and explicitly ask them what they think the problem is. In the case of this specific consultant, a candid one-on-one conversation revealed something entirely unexpected.
What was it?
They were working completely without proper access or documentation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were guessing at business requirements because they had been locked out of a critical legacy system since week 1. and they were too intimidated by the fast-paced culture to ask for access.
That's incredible.
The manager simply connected them with the right subject matter expert to get their credentials sorted, and the consultant's work immediately started arriving on time and exceeding quality standards.
So before you quietly sideline someone on your team, you have to ask yourself who your silence is actually protecting. Because if the honest answer is you and your own comfort, you must have the difficult conversation anyway. The managerial illusion is believing that avoiding conflict maintains team harmony.
Right.
But the operational honesty is recognizing that your silence actively robs your employees of the opportunity to correct their trajectory. By withholding the feedback they need to fix their workflow, you are ultimately doing far more damage to their career than a single moment of constructive friction ever could.
And, just as failure and passive-aggressive behavior can fester when ignored, good behavior operates on the exact same mechanics of contagion.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
But this positive contagion only takes hold if you actively shine a light on it. We are very quick to identify the spread of negative traits in an office, but we completely ignore the mechanics of how to actively spread positive traits.
Well, everyone understands how a bad apple ruins the bunch, right? We've all seen it. One person complains through every single team meeting, constantly rolling their eyes at new initiatives.
The cynic.
Yeah, they stop caring about the quality of their deliverables and they start logging off early. And within a few months, half the team quietly lowers their own bar to match that newly established baseline of mediocrity.
It spreads so fast.
It's a known cultural phenomenon where cynicism breeds cynicism. But we rarely discuss how to actively hijack that exact same psychological mechanism to spread positive operational behavior.
Right. So consider a scenario involving a newly hired junior analyst. He joins a somewhat disjointed, cynical team and immediately starts delivering his work on time. But more importantly than his punctuality, he demonstrates a completely different workflow.
What does he do?
He constantly asks detailed, probing questions in meetings. Instead of silently guessing at the answers and risking massive errors later in the pipeline, he stops the meeting, shares his screen, and asks the senior developers to explicitly verify his assumptions about the data models.
And the operational reality of modeling this specific behavior is just staggering. 4 months later, two completely different coworkers who are historically known across the department for being perpetually late start consistently meeting their deadlines without being chased by project managers.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Furthermore, one of those historically late coworkers actually starts joining the junior analyst's technical Q&A sessions with the team lead.
Because the junior analyst essentially removed the cultural stigma of not knowing the answer.
Yeah.
By visibly asking questions, he proved that asking for help is a faster route to finishing a task than hiding in a silo and guessing.
Which means you do not need upper management to build a formal, gamified program around good habits.
No, not at all.
You don't need gift cards or Employee of the Month certificates. Good behavior spreads naturally if it is highly visible and if it clearly pays off in a way others can observe. As a leader or a peer, when you see a specific workflow or habit-generating success, you just have to point at it and say it out loud.
Positive reinforcement strictly requires an audience. If you keep your praise locked inside a private annual performance review, you rob the rest of the team of a highly effective behavioral model they could be copying right now.
Well, this brings us to the ultimate test of operational honesty, which is how you get a massive, complex project funded and off the ground in the first place without trapping your entire team in an impossible illusion.
This is the critical framework of paying the bills versus stabilizing the house.
Yes.
Imagine the head of analytics walking into a high-stakes year-end budget meeting with a set of clickable, live cloud mockups for a new data platform.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
There is absolutely no back-end data migration plan. There is no structural architecture diagram. There is no engineering effort estimate indicating how many hours this will actually take to build. Despite all this missing foundation, the executive leadership team is entirely wowed by the sleek visuals on the screen, and they greenlight a multi-million-dollar project on the spot.
See, technical purists absolutely hate this approach.
They despise it.
To an engineer, this breaks every single rule of technical rigor and ethics. You're supposed to have the comprehensive plan, the exhaustive risk assessment, and the precise cost estimate completely finished before you ever pitch the idea to the board.
Right.
Otherwise, walking in with just a shiny front-end mock-up is essentially selling snake oil to executives who do not know any better.
But we must face the reality of the boardroom and the psychology of executive decision-making. Executive leadership generally cannot evaluate deep technical rigor.
True.
They cannot look at a complex database migration schematic and know if the structural integrity the tables will hold under a massive user load. What they can evaluate and what they're actively looking for is a tangible business outcome.
The vision.
Right. The clickable mockup gives them exactly that outcome. It allows them to feel the product. The mockup pays the bills by buying the room's attention, generating emotional momentum, and securing the necessary budget allocation. Executives evaluate risk based on visual momentum, not abstract back-end architecture.
But the mock-up buys the attention. It absolutely does not buy the actual work.
No, it doesn't.
And what separates an elite operator from a charlatan is the very next sentence they say in that boardroom. You must use the follow-up honesty to immediately stabilize the house. You have successfully captured their imagination, you have the budget unlocked, and now you must pivot instantly to anchor them to operational reality.
The good leader immediately capitalizes on that positive momentum to state clearly that the old local reports the company currently relies on have used undocumented, highly inconsistent rules for years.
Yes.
They look the executives in the eye and demand 2 extra weeks upfront, fully funded, just to reconcile the fractured business logic before any actual software development starts.
That's brilliant.
They use the political capital generated by the beautiful mock-up to buy the necessary time to do the invisible, unglamorous technical cleanup that will actually make the system function.
Because if you cave to the room's excitement and simply say thank you when they approve the budget, you will inevitably ride that thrill into a massive overpromise. The window for honesty closes incredibly fast in a corporate setting.
It shuts instantly.
You have to explicitly name what the foundational work requires while you still have the floor and the attention of the key decision makers. If you walk out of that room without securing the timeline for the hidden structural work, you have just signed your entire engineering team up for an impossible death march.
Exactly. Whether diagnosing a miraculously successful project, fixing a failing agile sprint cycle, managing an underperforming employee who lacks access, or pitching a massive cloud migration to a board of directors, the core operational mechanic remains exactly the same.
It's all connected.
You must relentlessly strip away the comfortable managerial illusion, find the exact granular formula of how things actually work, and say it out loud for everyone to hear.
We spend so much time optimizing our workflows and putting our failures under a microscope, but consider your own career trajectory right now. What is the biggest unexplained win you are currently coasting on? If you were forced to document the exact granular operational formula for why you are succeeding in your role today, could you write it down step by step? Or is someone else quietly fixing your validation logic behind the scenes, setting you up for a massive failure you will not even see coming?